1954, the Japanese finally made something worthwhile. Godzilla.
All right, yes, this week's movie is Godzilla, the OG black and white, the King of Monsters, a classic movie. Emily, give us our rundown.
First of all, I got to give that's for that improv ability right there is pretty incredible. Yes, you imitate a computerized affected cello very well. I had to look up the noise. All right.
It was a bass. Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was? Stand up.
Yeah.
All right. So the rundown for 1954. This is the OG Godzilla. Because when you said Godzilla, you didn't put a year, and I wasn't sure where we were heading. So the rundown.
So many Godzillas.
I know. There's like 4 of them at least. When 17 vessels explode and sink near Odo Island, Professor Kiyohei Yamane and his daughter Emiko and the Marine Hideto Agata head to the island to investigate. Soon they witness a giant monster called Gorilla by the locals, destroying the spot. Meanwhile, Emiko, she meets her boyfriend, the secluded scientist Serizawa, and she promised to keep a secret. He makes her, somebody else in a different language wrote this, I think, it's AI, to keep a secret about his research with oxygen. She agrees. A bunch of drink down mid-sentence.
Do you need help?
Yeah. It's hard to understand.
She exposes the lethal weapon, the oxygen destroyer that he has developed. When Godzilla threatens Tokyo and other Japanese cities, and the Army and the Navy are incapable to stop the monster. Sorry. There's meta jokes here. You told me to do a summary. It's too long and it's falling apart, and we're just rolling. I mean, it's
beautiful.
To her lover, Ogata. Now they have to convince Serizawa to use the oxygen destroyer to kill Godzilla. All right, we did summary. We're going a little bit longer with those. It's all right. The budget here, $450,000, and this earned a cool $6.5 million. This was directed by Ishiro Honda, and it's starring Takashi Shimura, Akihiko Hirata, and Akira Takarada. The runtime is 1 hour and 36, and the reviews 79 on Metacritic, IMDb 7.5, and Amazon a 4.7. Gentlemen,
all right,
not bad, man. And that's a nice little breakdown. I really like the way you do it, Justin. Love you, man.
Thank you. I practiced for many hours. I was ready and I prepared.
I have a couple of factoids because I did more research than usual. I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I watched all the old ones when I was younger, like on repeat.
Wow,
one of the channels just showed them constantly. Godzilla marathons. But I just found out some new things I had no idea. And I'll get into one later. But Godzilla, can you guess? Is Godzilla, like, how original do you think Godzilla is?
What do you mean original?
Just take a guess.
It's Japan. I assume they plagiarized it, like they do everything else.
You mean like what year was he invented?
No, I'm just... Okay, like what I'm saying is he's not original. He was based off of an American monster. That's right. We did it first. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. What does this look like?
That also looks
I don't see the resemblance, frankly.
And he was woken up. He's a monster, a prehistoric monster that was woken up from the ice from a nuclear explosion.
That made him large. That's so strange.
I think this one was already large, but yeah, so interesting little factoid there. I had no idea that he was based off of this thing that looks exactly like him.
Actually, ironically, the version of Godzilla before he gets bigger in -1 looks a lot like this.
Oh yeah,
like almost exactly.
Well, I think they acknowledge it, but apparently the creator of that was super butthurt about that little fact. He's like plagiarized.
Well, yeah, no, like Japan, China, they steal everything, man. They always have historically. It's a fact. Like they have a monument. They have one of the 4 surviving pillars from the city of Pompeii and their holy temple left in the world, and they have one of them for some reason with like fascist symbols on it.
Oh no,
man. Well, hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. You know what I mean?
You ain't cheating, you ain't China. Anyway, so we're going on. Basic impressions. Justin, had you seen this movie before?
No, I certainly hadn't. I'd probably seen parts of some of the Godzillas growing up at like a Christmas or Thanksgiving TBS fest, whenever they would have on Star Wars or Indiana Jones or 007 or Godzilla.
The
And you catch-
Sci-Fi Channel.
I don't know if it was even sci-fi, wasn't it? Is that what it was? Did Peapod, did you throw on sci-fi? Is that what happened? And you catch bits and pieces of these movies, but I didn't know which one was which. So I saw parts of them, but to sit down and watch a Godzilla movie and the original from start to finish, I had never done it. This is the first time for me.
No, sweet. Joe, what about it? Like you said, you'd seen all of them like on repeat since you were a kid, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, had you ever seen this one all the way through? It's pretty.
Honestly,
it's the
I'm
oldest.
not sure because this movie was also the one that was least like replayed. So it was like my memory's already still fuzzy on some of them. Like I got like some really fuzzy memories of like the son of Godzilla, which looked horrendous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then like the Mothra song, like people. I tell people about that. They have no idea that there's this song that's played in a serious Godzilla movie with these two tiny Asian twins that just to summon Mothra there.
Was that with Was that with Mecha Godzilla, or am I misremembering? It's been so long since I've seen those movies.
It might have been Kingdra. I think it was might be twice. I think it was with Kingdra, the three-headed one.
Ghidorah?
Yeah, they had to summon Mothra to assist Godzilla. I'm going to pull that up now, though.
AC, son. Man with the wonderful facial hair. Had you seen this movie before?
No.
Oh.
And I was actually impressed with a lot of the practical effects and stuff. I thought it was very much going to be like this cheesy doll mannequin dude in a suit walking across the screen. And it was, if you're really looking for it, like, yeah, that's obviously it is.
It was more seamless than
it
should have been. It was really, really good. And
I agree.
Justin, I know many movies have done better, but this was like paving the road for most of those guys to succeed later. Shush. Anyway, Justin loves this movie. Yeah, no, there's a lot to love about this movie, but I'm gonna admit something, and Justin's gonna be so happy that I do. It does need to be a little bit faster. If you put it at like 1.25, 1.5 speed for most of it, probably a little bit better in this individual singular case. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. I do like this movie, and I do like slow burn movies, but it is pretty. It lingers a long time, sometimes on shots that aren't really that good. Some of them are great, but others are like, okay, well, that's lovely. Okay, we can move on.
Over the camera today.
All right, so I'm not sure if this one's in the original one. I mean, I agree. Look, I agree. It's like there's definitely some, criticisms, I guess, because looking at it from a modern perspective. It's a movie made in the 50s.
This movie came out 75 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But let me give you guys a little taste. I'm not sure if this is the original appearance of this song. Apparently, this is 1992. I don't know about that, but yeah, 92. This is a little bit taste of the.
I thought that was the song. I didn't realize it was you singing.
Holy crap. This is blasting me into the past.
Like they're mini.
This is not Rama Rama.
Oh, maybe. Oh, if we don't get copyright, I'm playing this for our new intro.
This is not from the 1954 movie.
No,
100% no.
No, it's too. There's too many colors.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
What did she do to that poor building?
She
She took a nap. She's just like, hey, I'm just hanging out.
Cocooned all over the place. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna risk the copyright this time around. We'll see though.
Just like DBZ.
Your rendition was also beautiful.
Justin, you're a wizard with music, man. I think we could recreate a really quality Iron Seas version.
I'm sure we could, but hit up JVP. He's better at these things. I barely have time to like do anything. He's just cranking out stuff, so he might be your man.
You guys have heard him. He's down for more projects. He's starving for creative work. Justin, obviously. But yeah, no. Well, I mean, we could get a couple things out of the way. Can we all kind of agree that it like I do appreciate it. Wow, good job. I do appreciate it, but it is obviously made in the 1950s, and the pacing is a lot different than modern day films.
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
And
What
that's
do you
something
think
that, like,
this is?
I love you.
What do they say?
a toothbrush.
Right. Well, anyways, you were saying?
I was gonna say with it's hard with where I lost my train of thought.
Older films.
Yeah, well, look,
they'll come
there were
back to
so
me,
many
sure.
challenges that this movie had to come over. Like sometimes, there's some really impressive things. Like any time that Godzilla was at all convincing is a huge achievement at that time. But there's also a lot of times where you're like, this is a rubber suit.
They
Like,
see him and they're like,
They were there was fewer moments like that. And to your point, and to AC's earlier, the special effects, I didn't even notice them being a problem. And the movie, I felt like whenever it hit, it really hit, and whenever it didn't, it really didn't. There was parts like Kahuna said where it dragged, and when it dragged, I was just like, this is rough. And then it would hook you, and you're going along for the ride. You're like, yo, you don't even realize you're watching a movie from the 1950s. And some of the special effects, whenever Godzilla's first coming into Tokyo and he's like taking down the power lines and things of that nature. I think
and the guns and the jumping back and forth. It looks great.
Yeah, like some of the guns, and even the guy in the suit. Like whenever it's
oh,
not
the guns are real.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you had like the actual ships and the actual guns, of course they look good. They're real. But even with Godzilla, there were more scenes where it just looked totally, you were just fine. You're just in the moment. Then there were scenes where you're like, that's a guy in a suit. I know I poked fun at it leading into it, and there was a couple scenes where you could see the crinkles in the suit, and there's a couple cuts, the googly eye cut, which just made the thumbnail one of the worst.
Yeah.
When obviously
like,
when
2 minutes
Godzilla is
of the film, the rest
obscured
of it was
or it's
really good.
darker, it looks better.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, at night. Yeah, it was more things were obscured.
What comes to mind is when they first reveal him and he pops over the hillside.
Yeah.
Actually, I was expecting that to be like Barney or Teletubbies, and it was not. I was like,
Well,
that was
it's an
actually
advanced technique. It's advanced technique. First of all, they're using a different frame rate for Godzilla than the other parts, and they have to cut out the mountain. You know, this is back on film where they had to
They had to,
scissor cut this stuff.
crap together, dude. It was
Yeah.
insane.
That reminds me of there's a room, or not a room, a move named after that called the Japanese Sunrise.
So, like, learning a lot of these techniques, shut up. Jesus Christ. Learning, like, a lot of these
Speaking of
techniques are difficult. But, man, like, and this is, like, a cheesy way to give a movie a point, but, like, this movie is a history lesson in not only filmmaking, but, like, Japan history. And I'm going to get a little bit of that, right? But, like, the
100%,
suit,
yeah.
the rubber suit, the guy could only wear it for 3 minutes. He passed out multiple times during filming. He sweat profusely every time, obviously. And they had to, like, wash, like, head to toe wash it out from the inside because it's, like, it's sealed. I'm almost like, I feel like there was an easier way to do this, but, like, yeah, it just was.
Poke a hole. Let him breathe.
His
I
diet
don't
was
know.
purely garlic and onions for weeks leading into the filming.
World War II wasn't, that far off. A lot of these people most of the people that worked on this
We're probably in World War II.
they were involved. Or a lot of them had, family or personally were, like, damn near bombed by Nagasaki or Hiroshima. Like, it's kind of insane. It's like,
them talking about the idea of nuclear threat and comparing it to Godzilla in 1954 hits a little harder than people talking about it right now.
Sure.
here's the
Godzilla
best
is
fact.
the nuclear threat.
Here's the best fact that I just learned. Did you know that the main influence from this movie wasn't the first bomb? It wasn't the second bomb. It was the third time the U.S. nuked Japan. Did
There's
you know
a
we
third time?
nuked Japan a third time?
No.
No.
accidentally during testing, we
What?
I've heard about that.
Man, I have
Japan
Google ready. Let's go.
without an atomic bomb. You know, like so it wasn't an atomic bomb. It was a hydrogen bomb.
It's not a big deal, frankly.
That's why
I
they
don't
were-
get why they're
They were
crediting.
doing an oxygen destroyer in the movie.
And this
Yeah.
this is so cool, right? So yeah, and that was a big like I said, the main influence. And Godzilla is kind of talking about the history of Japan like as a whole, because they have constant earthquakes. There was the firebombing in Tokyo. They have constant destruction all the time throughout
It
their
feels
history.
like Godzilla is like combination of every bad thing that happens to them.
It is, and that's like, and so yeah, they got so yeah, the U.S. went to test the new nuke, and and it was bigger than they thought. It was a lot bigger than they thought.
Is that the one they set off underwater?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen.
yeah,
footage.
and it killed the fish population. Just
Oh, jeez.
fucked them. The fallout hit one of the islands nearby, and that's why I said it hit them a third time. And it definitely affected their like food source. For
Yeah,
a
like
while.
we're a fishing village.
Oh,
All
wait.
of the fish, for 100 miles, are dead. So
Is
Is there
Underrated.
footage of this bomb? I feel like I've seen the footage in the ocean. Where
there
it's
is footage. There is
yeah,
footage.
it's insane.
And-
many times. Yeah.
And one of the things that affected the most by the fallout, and which you very often see in almost every Godzilla movie, there was a little fishing boat called the Lucky Dragon that was caught
no.
in the nuclear fallout. And they have footage of the fishermen, like, getting tested by doctors with their, like, radiation burns and stuff like that. And apparently you could, the boat, I think it's in Tokyo, like, it's still there in a museum with, like, some other Godzilla stuff. So, yeah, that's why, like, it starts off with that. It's, like, that boat was the, like, main influence, though.
Gee Willikers, I wonder what inspired Godzilla, the movie.
So you can see
I don't
why
know. We can't
you
join.
can see why it's so frustrating when like Americans make like the 1999 Godzilla or like the new pink one, and we
Yeah.
just bastardize it all the time.
Well,
That's why
Yeah,
they
because
get
there's
so pissed.
so...
think about the last line of the movie, basically. If we don't stop nuclear testing, I'm sure another Godzilla
Yeah.
or big disaster will occur. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is they're like they have it's commentary on the war where it's like things kept getting worse. Like they were tearing shit up in China, and like it's kind of an acknowledgement of like they participated and encouraged evil acts of war, and they got the repercussions of evil acts of war in it's in this nuclear monster, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of this whole thing where it's just like now that this monster is here, nuclear bombs, it's going to keep their impending doom forever on for years. It is crazy. Yeah. So that's what I learned recently. I that was so interesting to learn that we nuked Japan a third time.
Yeah, I'd
Some
seen that
time
footage
ago.
before, but I didn't realize it was that event. I just thought it was like testing that happened prior to them doing whatever, and it was released in the future. Because I remember my grandpa used to always have, History Channel on Volume 70, and it was usually like dog fights in World War II, but occasionally there'd be those ones.
Bikini Atoll, right?
I don't know. I know that is a name that was a nuke testing site, but I don't know if that's the specific one he's referring to that I've seen the footage of. It might be that it's pretty famous, and that footage is pretty well known because it was colorized, and the original testing footage is all black and white and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because like you just assume you're like, oh yeah, we nuked them twice. They made Godzilla because of the two nukes, and it's like, well, actually, it was the third one. What third one?
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine being that fisherman, just like having a day. You're like, I don't want ships over there.
Bro,
What's that?
Can you imagine that the water and the like giant plume? You're like,
I mean, I think at that point, I just stand up and like just open. I'm like arms wide open, Creed style. I'm taking it, man. I'm just like, I'm
yeah, you
going
take
into
a lot
this.
of
With,
things, huh?
says the Marine.
From the edge, and I'm thinking,
That's kind of gay.
I was a little late. I was late.
maybe 6 feet ain't so. Sorry.
But
But
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Good, gay man. Anyway, so Serizawa
just makes you a beta cuck.
Serizawa is the doctor in this, and I think he has there's a couple moral quandaries that the characters have to face. One of them is the Japanese government on like how much can we lie and get away with the public. Basically, like how much. Unfortunately, historically, there's some truth to that with most governments, not just Japan. But the main moral quandary I think is with Serizawa is. He's like, I have created something that should never have been created, and if I use it, or if people ever know that it exists, it could change change world warfare, change the way people live. It could cause mass disaster across global disaster levels of problems.
Death, destroyer of worlds.
Well,
And
totally.
it's kind of taken out of his hands at some point, but it's a really interesting quandary that he kind of finds himself in, and also other characters around him. What do you guys think about all that?
Yeah, I think I did learn something about them trying. Apparently, they originally were going to film the scientist as like a bad guy, or not necessarily a bad guy, just more over the top with pressing it. But like, I guess he had he really respected scientists, so he's like, okay, I'm gonna change his character a little bit, and that's why he gets that death at the end. Yeah, Justin.
I thought this film did a really good job of balancing between, like, you have the professor who's sort of like this intermediary between both sides. You have the scientist who has the answer, but he's reluctant. Then you have the lovers that are involved that are kind of tied to everything ongoing. And then you go to the government, and their meetings are super boring and they're super sterile about it. There's barely animation in the acting. And I felt the acting, I don't understand Japanese, it was all subbed. But I thought the acting was pretty good in terms of the body language and just delivery of the lines, where the government officials just seem kind of like, oh, can we hide this from the people for a while? Let's just put that news story out and we'll reconvene that tomorrow. And it's like half their country's being destroyed. And they're like, how's things going? Another ship went down?
I mean, they don't have the internet. How are they going to know? How are they going to know?
Oh man,
Yeah,
the
so
Japan
true. And
Japan trying to hide, Japanese government trying to hide secrets of what's going on. I wonder if they ever did that story again.
Yeah, I wonder if in every other Godzilla movie ever made on planet Earth, maybe.
Oh, like almost every anime too. Like, I did want to say, just because I'm too late on the thought, but you mentioned like how the American Godzillas kind of like they're kind of a little bit disrespectful to the the art of, or whatever, how Godzilla was originally conceived. But I'm like, yeah, but Japan kind of did that to themselves. Like
They made some silly, weird, bad
just Monster of the
movies
Week
as well.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like you guys have all seen the GIF of Godzilla like sliding on his tail, like doing.
Oh yeah.
yeah, I posted that one. I was like, what is
He tries to
this?
fly like this.
I mean, it's kind of cool. And DH did one too, where he's like flying through the air and he's breathing and he's going real fast through the sky. I'm like, wow, they got real creative with this character down the road.
Maybe it's because of how many times I've seen it, but I actually liked the atomic breath in this movie.
Yeah.
It's not it's not like a
Oh, yeah, it
sci-fi
looks
laser
great.
beam. It's like, oh, it's causing like the metal to
Oh, man.
deteriorate. It's causing these things to catch on fire. And
Oh, it's like a breath.
yeah, an
versus
actual
like
breath.
a fire blast.
And because of the like low quality 1954's cameras and all that, the one scene where it's kind of not quite bird's eye view, but it's a high angle, and all the guys are scattering, and the fire breath comes down, and they're running. It was like it was intense because you felt like you're watching, I don't know, like CCTV or something, as opposed to a modern day camera where it's all high grade and it zooms in, some guy melts and turns into a skeleton. It was like you just felt like you're watching a camera. Just it was intense. It was more intense than I expected. That one specific shot with that fire breath you guys are talking about.
And also, it's like, I know Godzilla sometimes looks a little bit derpy in this film, a little bit, but he does look like a monster in this movie. He's not some majestic creature like they show in some other more modern takes of Godzilla.
When he's got shadows across him with the fire going and everything, the googly eyes actually catch the fire, and he actually looks like a terrifying creature, like in the darkness, with glowing eyes.
100%, yeah.
I think that was part of the googly eye thing, is they needed it to look a certain way, dark.
So part of it, they very specifically gave him ears to make him not be like completely lizard. That I guess is the defining feature to make him a monster, I guess. And then very specifically, they wanted his skin to look very scarred. So that was part of the design choice, and that's been true with most of the conceptions of Godzilla. He always looks like scarred, and that's like awesome detail.
It's funny because just talking about those details, like I said, last time I saw this, it was at my grandpa's house. His TV was like a 16-inch or whatever, mono speaker, 2 dials, like 5 channels, rabbit ears, all that. It had to be the right angle in the picture.
You have to hold the antenna to get the right picture. Yeah.
Yeah, foil on that, everything. And watching it on a modern TV, I don't have like a 4K or anything, but it's 1080p, what have you. And just to have the full picture, which it was 4:3, which surprised me too. It wasn't widescreen, even though I was watching it on HBO. But it's restored image, so you have better clarity. You got modern TVs, modern sound instead of that mono sound, and it was way more easy to be engrossed in those scenes than it was watching on those old TVs. And so it was a different experience. And that speaks to something like the quality of your system and setup. And I know people prefer theaters and things like that, but even at home,
100%. Yeah, no, there's a weird thing where they restore some of these older films to a higher, like, not quite HD quality, but with modern stuff, something about the older technology and the lack of focus combined with the modern technology, it creates a really interesting viewing experience because... Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like, this is how they wanted this to look back then, I think, but they just couldn't quite achieve it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the sound design specifically, it just, they nailed it with the song, and it just was, iconic ever since. And then the
every
Godzilla
time that song
roar
came on. Every time.
Yeah. Dude, and like, look, Godzilla -1, I will say, I don't know if this is controversial, it's better.
It's really good.
I mean, it has the advantage of coming
favorite.
out.
Yeah. Of being a year old. Yeah.
But, like, it's shit without the original Prince, right? Like, it's that the fucking music, when that plays in Godzilla -1, it's
such
like
a
it
good
hits
theme.
well.
It slaps.
Yeah, part of
Godzilla's roar. It's just
part of
good.
what makes Godzilla -1 so appealing to everybody and why it's so well received is because how respectful and accurate it is to what it's trying to do. Like,
I feel like -1 is kind of like a modern, almost like a revamp of like the original movie. It's like, what if we took a couple modern techniques and we kind of did a modern version of the exact same movie with a couple of changed details. It's very similar.
They're also like, the human story always tends to suck. What if we did it good for once?
What, you didn't like the 19 million meetings in Shin Godzilla?
Hey, I haven't seen Shin Godzilla actually.
Dude, it's I love -1.
Yeah.
I really I don't know if I like it better than Shin. Shin is really it's dark and creepy in a very different way than any other.
All right,
Godzilla
I'm gonna watch it.
For those wondering, it's directed by the guy who directed Evangelion. Now I hate that.
I was gonna say, I'm out now.
Piece of crap. But Shin Godzilla is a good version of his ideas being explored.
Side note: Evangelion's made for fucking dweebs who think that they're smarter than everyone else.
And,
just don't get
really
it, man.
And really fringe surface level anime watchers, because they hear about it and it's just like,
it's a well-made show, but I've never liked it. Simple as that.
Well, the show's better. The movies are. Yeah. Sorry, sidetracked too much. Back to Godzilla.
Weeb.
Yeah.
I mean, just to add into what you guys are saying, the roar, that Godzilla roar in this movie sounds incredible. And talking about sound design from this time period, even like Star Wars is incredible with the light shooters, beams, or whatever they're called, light sword sabers and all that. I'm not a big Star Wars guy. I know, I nailed it. I know all the lore with David Skyfield, and that was in the 70s. That's 20 years later. What give you? And this movie in the 50s, and that roar. I mean, it was, again, talking about the sound of my TV.
Guns,
whenever it happened, I was like, whoa. I mean, you're pulled into that moment. And they did that. I think we talked about before the show. It was a bass or a cello. It was one of those big, long string fellas. And they played it real slow. And then I don't even know how they slowed down.
They used a weird tool and scraped it along, is what they did.
That's and man, it chills you to your bones when you hear him doing that.
Because it does sound like an animal, but it doesn't sound right, which is kind of the point.
Yeah, man,
it's a monster.
Haunting.
It sounds pained also.
Yes,
and if I ever get a smart car, it's going to be my horn. Go on, Beth.
What? Sorry, I don't mean to cut people off. No, I was gonna say the first movie with sound was released in 1927. So they had less than 20 years of
Man,
Wow.
working
That's-
with that type of technology, which you can imagine how bad the sound was in 1927.
Yeah.
So it's insane. Like this movie really was way far ahead of its time. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
not
Bill,
2024
Bill,
ahead
I
of its
respect
time.
Bill. I respect the honesty. I respect the honesty.
What is that?
I'll have you know, I'm one of those dweebs who thinks he's smarter than everyone else.
Keyword. Thanks.
What's funny about
Thinking
these old-
that I don't know. Thinking that seems kind of generous. I'm not sure.
some of these old movies, like I went back, I never saw Miracle on 34th Street until I think last year or something like that.
movie, dude.
And there's court battles in it and things of that nature. I think that one's also pretty old. I don't know if it's 50s. It might even be older than that. But in this movie too, the themes they're 70 years old, but they're still relevant. You're watching, you're like, oh yeah, the media is covering up stories. The government is not taking all the best.
The government
approaches
is
to what's
not
going on.
being entirely forthcoming.
Yes,
And
who's
also the
affected,
cause of
you know.
everything.
That
Also,
doesn't
the
happen
hardcore.
in modern days though.
No, this is
Everything's
just this is a
fine.
problem of the past. It's nice to look back and laugh at those imbeciles.
We're in
Yeah,
a utopia right now.
there's-
Currently,
We did it. There's a couple
did it.
scenes too that really struck me. And this movie was a combination of there's points where I'm like, man, I wish I could speed this up. When it's the government talking and stuff, it's like I get it. But a couple scenes that really stuck with me. One is whenever Godzilla is destroying. I think he's going through Tokyo, and there's that mother holding the two children, and she's like, "We're gonna be
Yeah.
back with Dad soon." And it's just like,
No, you
dude,
ain't.
like. And then I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, I'm like, it's a movie. They're fine. They're backstage having a
It's
sushi or something. And
it's the first
Just
grimdark
like,
movie
yeah.
ever made. It's the first grimdark movie
Godzilla's
ever made.
grimdark.
oh man,
very
but that scene, and then the other one was talking about the media. There's a scene where they're up in that tower and they're reporting and they're on the radio and like, oh, Godzilla's destroying everything. This is really bad, and oh, he's getting closer. And what's going to happen next? And oh, geez, he's getting real close. Oh, we gotta stay on the air though. Stay tuned, see what happens. And then of course he destroys the tower they're on, like kills all of them. But the entire time, the media is doing whatever it takes to get.
We're
the shot.
having some technical difficulties. We'll get back. Well, they'll get back to you anytime. Surely they
And
will. Yeah.
There was that movie that came out not too long ago called Civil War, and there's a scene in that movie that's very similar where the media, it's like they're detached. They'll do anything
The
to get
character
that
has
shot,
to-
even if it's their own demise or stepping over the fallen
Godzilla did it
body
better.
of their friend. Sure. But it's something that my point is that again, 70 years old, these themes are still relevant. It's just like you watch these old stuff and you feel like you're from a different era because we're young, and then you watch this and you're like, oh wait, this
Also,
Timeless.
what a creative and plausible way to kill a monster like Godzilla.
Well, I was going to talk about the ending and how good the ending was. So the guy, like, the subtext of the movie, it's like, why does he kill himself at the end, right? Well, it's like he's taking himself out because he has the technology that killed Godzilla, and he doesn't want that technology to go. So that's why he's killing himself with it with the monster. And also, another fun fact: 2 years prior, it was illegal for Japanese people in their films to have depictions of suicide. Can you guess why?
I have three guesses. I'll start with S. And with you.
Yeah.
Well,
Gaze
it's
in
like
there.
it's like
Pearl Harbor.
it's like he checked off every box.
Oh,
It's
I
like
see.
this is the first and last time this technology will ever be used. There are no other samples. I've brought here's all my research papers, which were not enough, and he burned them in the fire. And
Well-
then he's taking out the bastion of knowledge and experience they created in the first place.
Except, and it gets like dreadful. You have that other guy. I don't remember which character it was. That's walking away as everyone else is saluting, and then he kind of has the final words in the movie. He's like, "Godzilla's going to be back."
There's going to be
and,
more.
and he doesn't really mean necessarily Godzilla, but he's just like the next Godzilla is going to be back.
And doesn't that
Um,
touch on the tragedy of the kamikaze spirit? Because
exactly.
yes, the guy was down in the dumps, and there's the poetry involved with I need to take out the monster that started this to begin with. The knowledge of ultimate destruction, right? I need to go. But Godzilla's going to be back.
Yeah.
They're going to need somebody to take him out again, right? And so there's the tragedy of that is like all these young pilots that went and sacrificed themselves.
Yeah.
Some of them were engineers, some of them were doctors, some of them were teachers.
You
What
almost
if
think
there
the
was
movie
a-
could.
I was gonna say, what if there was a moment of hesitation where he goes down into the ocean and he has the oxygen destroyer, and he's like, maybe I should be using this somewhere else instead of down
Also,
here.
also, what a horrifying idea for a biological weapon of some kind. It's like, oh, when this thing combines with water, it disintegrates any oxygen-based living life forms.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like fish turn to bone, and then and then the bones disappear. I'm like, that's pretty freaking hardcore, dude. That's
Yeah, and Matt's like, cut you off. What were you saying?
Well, I was gonna say, I think like in an alternate world, if they didn't do Godzilla 2, it's like maybe that technology, the guy lives or something like that. Or no, the guy doesn't live, but somebody else comes out and builds something just as destructive and then uses it against the Japanese people.
Yeah. You find the Tesla
no.
trunks in his garage or something. I don't know. Whatever he forgot to burn, quote unquote. You could contrive.
I
it
don't
in
think
a
they
million
actually
ways.
ever intended on making a sequel.
I don't think they did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the end
when did
seemed
when? I'll
fairly
look it up. But when did the next one come out?
I think it was actually really quickly after.
Yeah.
But then you see that success, and apparently they made an American version for the dub. Like there's additional, I guess. Well, I don't know if additional, but they have some different scenes where they have a white dude that's like part of the movie, and they wrote him in. And they kind of like edited him in, not like superimposed, but they did some reshots with some of the actors to like make it feel like he was always there.
They
And
did
that
the
man's
same
name, Jim Varney.
They did the same thing
dude,
they did with, like Star Wars and shit.
Can someone
China-
bring up some of those images that McCoppin made, because they were killing me,
my
dude.
god! But do we have more to speak on with Godzilla before we get
The
into
sec-
the earnest
The
means?
second film was in 1959. It was a terrible name, Godzilla Raids Again. What a
Raids?
yeah,
That was
Raids.
Godzilla. Like,
Jeez,
Returns
that
or
makes him
something.
seem like a fun guy. Like, hey, he's
Not
raising
raves,
that-
not raves.
No, like raid. Yeah, I heard you,
Raid.
but I mean, it's not
So far-
good, but it just sounds
Viking
like a
sequel.
mistranslation.
We're gonna commit a little war crime. We're gonna commit a little war crime.
I mean, 5 years isn't terribly early, I guess.
Yeah,
Commit a little war crime.
and I don't blame him. I mean, like we said at the beginning of the show, this movie made a lot of money for the time period. $500,000 budget in today dollars, and it made almost made 6.5 million. So that's a massive return. So I'm not surprised, even if they intended to do one, if they came back and like, hey, goodbye.
And the strong
Hold on
points
to-
of this film
Yeah.
are still really strong, which is
Yeah.
impressive. Like 75 years later.
Yeah, it's
But yeah,
inconsistent. But I agree.
I say it floats. AC, you float,
She's a
Joe?
floater.
Yeah, what do you think? I think even on technicality, it floats no matter what. Like it's just there's I don't think there's any way like that you could ever say this doesn't float.
I know, especially since the chat would turn against you.
Yeah, you would say that.
You just watched a clip from the Iron Seas podcast. Make sure to like this, subscribe, it helps us out a little bit, and please catch the show live at 9:30 Eastern every Tuesday.